right, well, my name is Sebastian. I've been working with Flink, especially on driving frequency, retention, engagement. I've been in quick commerce for already around 8 years. And I think I've been uh, having the experience or the opportunity to see or to understand how to maximize profitability through engaged customers, to frequency. And we have been talking a lot about AI, and I think it's also important to take a step back and understand how does that fit also in the overall strategy. And with that, the question is what keeps customer coming back for more, right? And oftentimes we say maybe this campaign was it, or this optimization on ASO, or specific initiatives that we highlight that are the ones that drive this frequency or engagement. But what is really is how the different strategies orchestrate together through a connected experience that is designed from the minute that the customer see the first ad to the minute that is ordering once and again. And what is oftentimes the issue? And it can be going back to the silos, right? So we have oftentimes teams, amazing teams working independently, UA driving installs, ASO optimizing the app store, CRM managing the campaigns, and so on. But what happens oftentimes, or is easy to lose track, is oftentimes we are, let's say, dancing to different music, right? So UA maybe to some Bad Bunny, or ASO to some Taylor Swift, and so on, but everyone is doing an amazing job, but independently. So what I want us to rethink a little bit again is, how do we integrate this in a seamless customer lifecycle, right? That we think from the very beginning, how do we want to showcase to the customers from the moment they are considering, when they are going to the first order, repeat order, loyalty, and discovery. We aim into this continuous customer flow that is designed for the customer to go organically from one stage to the other. And how do we start with this? I think it's taking us very, very first step, let's say, or revisit those beliefs that initially maybe were very clear, but with the time it's easy to get lost on. Then understand what we want to show to the customers, what we as a company recognize as maybe the best ones, right? And first align and ask to the teams, is it really what we all think is that I don't know, the cost, the brands that is in your app, are we all the teams aligned? If not, it's important to drive a workshop or a place that allows people to bring together and form that vision. To later potentially check with the customers, is it aligned what we think that the customer sees to how the customer really sees us? And define those gaps, identify potentially, okay, we see as the cheaper option, but actually the customer sees as the most expensive option. So there's definitely a gap, a misalignment that needs to be worked on, either from a communication perspective or a strategy. Iterate from steps from 1 to 4 until you find this clear understanding between what the company wants to portray to the customers and what the customers see from the app. And then it's important to understand how does this translate into the different teams, because just to take it to a day-to-day task, it's not the same how you communicate to a new friend to how you communicate or talk to a friend that you have been talking for years already. Especially you will need to understand what is the key things that you want to share in the different stages and make sure that those key elements are there. So again, one key important step is to understand and make sure that this vision that you have about your product, about the communication, is there and is aligned internally. With that, one tool that I oftentimes find very useful to iterate, to test these concepts really fast, is ASO, right? To understand, okay, define these 3 ideas that we think are what the customers really see about us, and let's see how that's worked in real life. Here we have 3 concepts that back in the days, a few years ago, were the main concepts for the food delivery in LATAM, that are food porn, non-brands, perceived value. We tried different ways to show food or brands or perceived value, And what we came always to the same conclusion, it was these three concepts, that then we put them together in the assets and we start seeing the incremental uplift of putting these ideas together. So the idea here is test these concepts that you as a team brought together and make sure that you have some data to back up why this concept, why not the other one. But the idea is not only to have these learnings, right? Is how do you bring those learnings or integrate upward or downward? How do we make the exponential growth from these learnings come to the different stages of the funnel? So why don't we go, for example, to UA? And how do we see this happening in Meta? How do we see it happening in TikTok, in Google, and so on? And here we unlock another layer of let's say, localization, right? So we know that is the food and the brands and the perceived value, but how does that translate potentially for a country? Now we go to a specific brands from the country, specific food for the country, and even on a city level, why not? Here then we go to the other side of the spectrum. We go to CRM, to product. We already know some brands, we already know some products, some things that we want to highlight, but what if we start communicating that consistently every stage of the process? Also in the App Store, also in the onboarding, and the first brands that the customers see in that specific region, why not to be the same brands that they were connected from the very beginning with the ads, right? Here is when the uplift, the conversion rate, the impact starts compounding. And here's where we see how a small, let's say 3% uplift in ASO can become way bigger, including UA, including product, including onboarding, CRM, basically under the same umbrella. And with that, we already know more or less what do we want to communicate to the customers. We already have a clear concept. So now it's important, I think, to go through the journey, understand what are the key actions that the customer takes to go to that specific aha moment, this specific situation or event that make them fall in love with the brand. And ask some simple question as, is the journey clear and intuitive? What friction can I remove? Can the product adapt even further to how the customer interacts with the experience? And here's some like very old, potentially cases or examples where small tweaks or shift in the UX may have an incremental impact on the conversion rate. A smart address. We all have some apps that you have to still add the address with the hand, and then maybe have some errors and so on. So back in the days, one game-changing change in the UX was just adding what we all are super familiar, that is select your location, and then that's pretty much it. Payment defaults. Oftentimes, different regions have different payment methods that are preferred for the customers, right? Maybe in Germany it might be PayPal, or maybe in Netherlands, Ideal, and so on. So if we know already that most of the customers are already using this payment method, why don't we make it easier for the customers? Why don't we, on a regional level, just pre-select that payment method and make sure that this flow through that payment method is absolutely flawless and perfect, right? And natural sharing. This is something that is very important. Now we want sometimes to have all the information, all the permissions, notifications, locations, phone number, but let's be honest, that's not really how we interact with people, right? We don't know someone and ask for the direction, the phone number, the permission to send WhatsApp. We basically wait till the moment is the right one for the customer to be able to share that information, and they were willingly, and basically because they see the value of sharing that notification or that information, they will give it to you. So here is just a reminder that small tweaks, small changes in UX may dramatically change the impact in your conversion rate more than any potential discount or communication. Is a small tweaks that makes your product way easier to use. And with that, let's go through different stages of the customer: early stage, retained customers, churned customers, and how do we basically make the customers more successful in that stage. So in early stage of the customers, I think is key, instrumental to identify why or what is this key metric that we want to achieve, right? Understand if it's a key feature, we want to make the customer achieve these 3 or 4 orders, complete an onboarding. This is based on data, right? To understand what is the breakpoint where the customer tries this feature, make this order, that from there onwards, there's highly chance that the customer will increase significantly the lifetime value or their retention. And then once you have clear of this objective, it's just using your toolkit, identifying potentially strategic discounts, minimum order value optimization, gamification, or missions to make sure that the customer in a organic, non-pushy way goes through that specific step that you identify that will be better for the customer lifetime value and retention. Now, when we go to retention, oftentimes I see a great value on RFM modeling and understanding and segmenting the different type of customers, right? In terms of frequency, how often they come back to your app, what value are they generating, and is extremely different how you would interact with a customer that comes every week, every day, that with a customer that almost don't use your app, right? So why not to tailor the customer journey, the experience, the communications, every single step of each of these customers to define a sub-segment goal. Again, it's not the same goal that you would ask for a customer that is your start customer than a customer that barely uses your app. So tailor your offers, communications, and journey on a segmented level will definitely help moving the metrics that you define in the right direction. Then we have the churn. The customer already tried the product, already tried the experience, and for some reason churned, right? But here I see it as a good opportunity to understand and measure and quantify what are those key main reasons why the customer is churning. And not only that, because we have the data, we can already start solving the issue, but why don't you trigger and personalize the win-back journeys based on the issue that the customer had, right? I think it makes more sense that launching a generic campaign that basically we are saying for the customer that had an issue with the order to the customer that saw very expensive products, and we are sending exactly the same communication most of the times. So tailoring or finding those triggers that will help you to craft and define the segmenting journey will help you to drive the conversion and the performance. I think it's similar to early stage, but in this case, we want to understand and define what is the action that basically would define with higher probability that the customer returned, and make sure again that the journey, the incentive, the communication is basically aiming to achieve that specific point in time. So with that, I just want to summarize some of the key learnings or specific information that we went through today. And the first one is, again, think as an ecosystem, try to make the different teams work together in a vision that will help them to communicate in a more organic way, let's say. Align internally, define what is that we want to communicate to the customers. Use ASO for speed. Why not test to use it faster? Integrate the learnings. Don't keep the learnings on ASO or on UA, but be able to integrate through the user funnel those learnings, remove the friction, make sure understand what steps maybe are not fully necessary for the customer to see in that point in their life cycle. Guide early action. You know what the customer or what is the wow moment that the customer would like to achieve. So make sure that you make that easier for them to get it. Retention is, again, segmentation and creating those specific journeys for the customers based on the stage of them. And churn reduction is basically, again, identifying, quantifying those key, let's say, killer events and making sure that you are crafting the journeys to win the customers back based on the problem that they had. And with that, I would say, don't be again that weird party that everyone is dancing to a different type of music, but make sure that you're orchestrating and you're putting everything together that to dance to the same beat that will show incremental in terms of the impact that each of the teams are having and as a company we have together. And with that, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.